Welcome back, Devils fans, to yet another episode of Devils Down Under, the November 3rd, 2023 edition. We have passed Halloween, and we are in full force into the season, and it's been a good week. We have no losses to report on this week. The Devils went 3-0-0 since our last recording last Friday. And I am Chris, as always, along with my co-host, Georgia. Georgia, how has your week been?
It has been a long week. I am very glad for the weekend. How about you?
I'm okay. I was having a better week until today, and I think I'm coming down with something. So I apologize if I sound a little weird in this episode. I've got a little bit of a scratchy throat and a stuffy nose, so I'm hoping it's not COVID, but I got a little something coming down. So apologies if I sound a little off.
That's all right. I'm sure our listeners will forgive you for that.
If not, well, oh well. It is what it is, I guess.
Got to deal with it this week.
You can send in your complaint emails to the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a lot to get into this week. We've got injuries, we've got a few games to go over, we've got some prospect updates, and I have a little bit of a rant later on about a certain topic involving enforcers, as they are called, or tough guys on NHL teams. But we will get into all of that in just a few moments. But first, we have last week's Guess That Devil to get to. So would you do us the kind favor of telling or reminding everybody what the clue for this week's Guess That Devil was?
Yeah, no, I want to apologize. I completely forgot to tweet the clue as well as the answer from last week's episode. So I will do that, and I'll just say, in retrospect, and I'll just put both clues for this week. Anyway, so the clue last week was that this Devil was drafted 27th overall by the New Jersey Devils in 1998 and played 8 total seasons with the Devils. He helped the Devils win 2 of the 3 Stanley Cups, and he was the first NHL player from Alaska. Now, this one was kind of a slam dunk, you said, and I knew it was going to be an easy one, but had to get it over with.
Yeah, both the draft position and it was really all of it was pretty obvious, but the draft position combined with him being from Alaska was the dead giveaway. So This is none other than Scotty Gomez.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Scotty Gomez. So yeah, he played 8 seasons with us, although that was split. He played for some other teams in the middle and then came back. Yeah, my little facts about him, he's still a franchise top 5 leader for career assists and points in the regular season and in the playoffs, and he still holds the New Jersey Devils record for most points in a rookie season. Mm-hmm. And then he was also the first NHL player of Hispanic descent, with a Mexican-American dad and a Colombian mum. So that's kind of cool. Not only the first player from Alaska, but also the first Hispanic player.
Yeah, he's got quite the background.
Yeah.
Scotty Gomez does, so. Good old Scotty Gomez. There are not any Devils fans that have been around for any more, or I should say, there are not any Devils fans that have been around for more than, I would say, 15 years that are not familiar with Scott Gomez. Mm-hmm. So he's a little bit of a complicated one because he was a great player for us, and we had a lot of great seasons for us. But I think there's a little bit of salt amongst some Devils fans because he left us to go to the Rangers. Mm-hmm. So there was some discussion earlier on Reddit. I was looking at a post on the hockey subreddit about like who each team's next retired number is going to be, and it was a graphic. Mm-hmm. And in the graphic, they had Scotty Gomez for the Devils. And there was quite a few Devils fans in that thread that were like, yeah, no, it's not Gomez. if they're going to retire a number, the next number that's going to be retired, if it's not Sergei Brylin, then the next number that's going to get retired is probably a current Devil. It's probably going to be Nico Hischier or Jack Hughes. So
yeah,
him going to the Rangers, I think, soured it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a good one. It might have been easy, but hey, I mean, there's going to be a lot of easy ones, so I'll take the easy and the hard.
Like I said, I'll still tweet it, and you guys can just respond with your your gifts, as I said last week.
I made a comment last
goals
week
and things.
about how I was expecting at least 3 people to respond to this week's tweet, and then you didn't even tweet it, Georgia.
I am so
you didn't
sorry.
Even tweet it.
I've had a massive week at work, and I because of the time zone difference, I usually have to put it in a draft tweet and set it timed for like 4:00 in the morning my time, because I'm not going to tweet it at that time. Otherwise, it doesn't get any traction at all because no one sees it. But that relies on me having to remember to do that, and as we know, ADHD doesn't always allow that to be the case, especially when you're stressed and got other stuff on.
Yeah, I'm giving you shit, but I'm just messing around with you. It's okay. Not a big deal.
Anyway, that's not the important part of this episode. The important part is that we got 3 wins in this last week since last recording.
Yeah, so the Devils played 3 games this week. Well, I should say that since our last recording, like you said, they went 3-0-0. So they got a total of 6 points out of a possible 6 points. So despite some questionable goaltending and still some questions on defense here and there, the Devils find a way to scrap out 3 wins. And I say scrap out because a lot of these games have probably been a little bit closer than I think most Devils fans, myself included, would be comfortable with, particularly that game against the first game against the Wild. Felt like it should not have been as close as it was.
Agreed.
So, yeah, let's get right into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
So the first game that the Devils played was last Friday. It was against Buffalo. It was in New Jersey. It was a 5-4 win. The goal scorers in that game were Alexander Holtz, Jesper Bratt, Erik Haula, Jack Hughes, and Erik Haula again. So Haula walks away from that game with 2 goals, with a 2-goal game. This was a real back and forth game, as kind of expected. Both Buffalo and New Jersey have explosive offenses. So, I mean, am I comfortable giving up 3-4 goals every single night? No. Is it understandable to give up 4 goals against a stacked Buffalo offense? Yeah, it's probably a little bit more understandable. So, although the defense was not good, Buffalo can make a lot of teams look pretty silly defensively when they're on their game. So I'm not going to read too much into that, but it was very back and forth. I don't think either team held a 2-goal lead at any point. Did we have a 2-goal lead in that? I think it was all back and forth, right?
It was all back and forth, I believe.
Yeah, let me just double check because I don't want to. But I'm pretty sure nobody had more than a 1-goal lead in that game. Yeah, because it was tied 2-2. The Devils did score 2 goals in a row, but that was to tie the game and then tie the game at 2 and then go up 3-2. Yeah, so really no team able to take a stranglehold on this game. Again, still a lot of defensive mistakes, a lot of errant passes, getting kind of caught flat-footed or out of position. It is getting better, I do feel like. This game is probably not the best indicator of that, but in the subsequent games against Minnesota that we'll get into, I think that it's slowly starting to get better in some key areas. But yeah, all around decent win for the Devils. And the other thing that and I'll get into this a little bit more, but this was the game that stood out for me in that I think Luke is really starting to round into form.
Yeah.
I think Bill Spaulding said it earlier on today's broadcast that I think Luke is leading all Devils in ice time in the last few games. It might have just been for tonight's game.
He's had a lot of ice time.
Yeah, in the last 3 games that he's played. So in the Sabres game, Luke played 22 minutes and 33 seconds in that game, which led all defensemen. In the first game against the Wild, he had 15 minutes and 29 seconds, so he didn't play as much in that game. And in tonight's game, I believe he led at least all defensemen again. I'm not sure about all skaters. He had 22 minutes and 1 second of ice time, which led all skaters. The only player Jack was close at 21:57. So he was 4 seconds behind Luke in ice time, which those two have been, particularly on the power play, have been kind of glued to each other the last couple of games. So their on ice numbers are going to be probably pretty similar. So, overall, decent win for the Devils and a good way to start the week. What are your thoughts coming out of this game?
Yeah, I remember going into that game. You you jokingly said to me, we've been bad defensively lately, and it's against the Sabres, so we're probably going to come out with it being a 7-1 game to Buffalo, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think I said something like we'll lose this game 7-3 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So glad that didn't happen. Glad it went the other way and we actually got a win out of it. I know you were talking about Luke being better. I do think that first goal that was scored from Buffalo, which was the first goal, again, but the New Jersey couldn't score the first goal in that game. That was caused...
Oh, no, not against Buffalo we didn't. Yeah, you're right.
Not against Buffalo, yeah.
Yep.
That first goal was caused by Luke just slipping and falling over, and yeah, I think he just got caught in a rut in the ice or something happened. That wasn't such a great look for him, but he did end up with those 2 assists in that game. It also was the first game that Jack didn't get multiple points, I believe.
Did he?
He only got the one goal, but he didn't get any assists, and I think it was the first time that was the case.
Yeah, he had no points against the Wild, the first game against the Wild, I believe.
Mm.
Yeah, he didn't have any points in the first game against the Wild. So
yeah,
but this game was played before that. So yeah, I think this was his first. Well, it wasn't his first single point game of the season, but it was one of only like 2 that he's had.
Yeah, there was. He didn't score that many points in this game because he only had the 1 goal, but obviously he still showed himself to be a great player. No shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
It's Jack Hughes, but
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good game.
It was certainly a fun game to watch if you were an outsider.
Oh,
if you didn't have a horse in the race, it was a great game to watch. I think as both a Devils fan or both for Devils fans and for Sabres fans, it was a little nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, I'll take the result. Like I said, I was kind of half anticipating that this was gonna be a stinker for us, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the game where the goaltending gets the starting goalie gets pulled, the Devils give up like 6-7 goals, and we'll probably score 3 or 4, but it's gonna be a slop. We had a game against Buffalo like that last year where it was just we scored a bunch of goals, but we still lost, and it was just a bad, sloppy, crappy game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The Devils would improve on that against the first game against the Minnesota. We had like a weird.
We had a home and home.
A home and away.
Sorry, home and away.
Yeah, we had I was going to say it's not a back-to-back, but it's a home and away. Thank you. We had a home and away against them. So the first game was at home. It was a 4-3 win. Mm-hmm. The goal scorers in that game for the Devils were Jesper Bratt, Tyler Toffoli, Eric Haula, and Jesper Bratt again. So after 2 goals from Haula in the previous game against Buffalo, we get 2 goals from Bratt against Minnesota. Goaltending was better in this game. V had his save percentage, I think, in this game was still it was good. It was like 9-1-7 or something like that.
9-1-2.
9-1-2. Okay, so fine. But he had multiple really critical saves in that game, particularly late in that game. There was right at the last like 6 seconds, I think it was, or 5 seconds. Kaprizov got the puck right in like the center, like just like in center high slot area, and my butt immediately clenched. And VTech made the save on that, which could very well have saved that game for us. Yeah. So V has been up. I mean, the goaltending in general has been very up and down this season. V has looked good at times. He has looked not so good at other times, but this was a game that I thought he looked pretty good. And I thought he was solid. He was what we needed him to be in this game. So defense was still not ideal, better than the Buffalo game. Again, it seems like the defense is still trying to kind of find their way and find where players' skill sets are gonna slide in, with their whoever they're paired with. So we have seen some signs of improvement over the last few games, especially compared to the first 3 games of the season where the defense just looked like Edmonton levels of incompetent. So yeah, again, still, I mean, I still think the Achilles heel on defense for this team is Brendan Smith. I know I sound like I harp on the guy a lot, but I can't stand him on the ice. Every time I see him on the ice, it's like, oh no.
Yeah. It is frustrating when he takes all those penalties or just makes poor decisions. And maybe it's not as bad as we're thinking it is, because Lindy still puts him out on the ice. And I don't really know what he's thinking in regards to that.
His underlying penalty kill numbers aren't terrible, but his 5-on-5 play is horrible. He's easily the worst. Probably, I haven't looked into it specifically, but I would not be shocked if he was either the worst or the second worst player on the team analytically 5v5 of all skaters, forwards and defensemen. Yeah, he gets caught a lot. He's not super slow. He's certainly not as fast as some of the other players on the team, but he gets caught a lot. Both out of position and a little flat-footed. And I don't know what the answer to that is other than not play him.
Yeah.
Either way, it was another 2-point night for Luke, which he is now, after tonight's game against the Wild, I believe, tied for rookie scoring at the moment. So,
which is amazing, especially as a defenseman.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just the 2 assists in that first Minnesota game. And this was another game that we were sloppy with penalties. We had 6 penalties in that game, and we were lucky that we were able to hold Minnesota to 1 for 6 on those power plays, because this is a very different game. If they go 2 or 3 for 6, this is a very, very, very different game.
Yeah, especially since our penalty kill is near bottom of the league at this moment. I think it's 25th or something along those lines.
70. It was 72% or 73% coming into this game. It hasn't been good.
Yeah, so we're pretty glad that they only managed to score on 1 of those power plays. But
they could have had more, to be honest.
They could have had more. Yeah,
their power play did not look terrible in this game. They had individual shifts that looked bad, but as a whole, they probably should have at least had 1 more power play goal in this game. And again, this was an example of when V is on, he can give you those he can give you those really important saves, and he did in this game. But this is probably not 2 points for the Devils if the penalty kill plays any worse than it did.
Now, that being said, though, this was the game that Nico got injured, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so some of those penalties were...
Oh, no. Sorry. The game that he got injured in was in Buffalo.
Was it?
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, that was Connor Clifton, defenseman for the Sabres. I forgot to mention that, actually. Thank you for reminding me. Nico got hurt in that Buffalo game. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, and what that means going forward. But he took an illegal hit to the head from Connor Clifton. It was clearly a dirty hit. I don't know if it was intentional or not. I would hope not. But either way, not a play that you want to see in the NHL. And he came back out. So he went straight to the bench, then he went down the tunnel. He came back out. He played basically the rest of the second, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he didn't come back out for the third and didn't play any of the third.
Yeah.
And it does make you wonder if they missed something. There's supposed to be a protocol for this, right? When there's a hit to the head, they're supposed to go through concussion protocol. And there are spotters that the NHL hires. They're supposed to be independent, medical. I don't know if they're doctors or not, but they're medically trained in some way to spot head injuries and concussions. And I don't like that he came back out and played more, because he took another big hit not too long after he had gotten back out there, and it wasn't a hit to the head, but it was
any
firm,
kind of shake.
Yeah, it was a firm body check that sent him back down to the ice, and that was the hit that he. After that hit, he didn't play much after that. I think he had one more shift after that, and then he was done.
Yeah.
I don't
remember
like
when
that
he
he
came
went back
out.
there.
I was shocked as someone. So I have worked in brain injury rehab, and I have assessed people for head injuries and things. And well, having done that, I do understand that it can be quite. You can miss them, like it. It depends on how the symptoms are showing, and sometimes the symptoms can take a little bit to show up, especially if someone's got a whole bunch of adrenaline coursing through them, such as playing in a sports game. So I can understand that maybe they might have missed something and not noticed it until 10 minutes later when he'd cooled off. But still, I remember him coming back out on the ice and me. I think I felt relieved initially because I went, oh, I guess that means he must be okay. But then I was sort of going, he didn't seem okay though. And sure enough, he wasn't okay.
Yeah, he didn't. He did not seem right after he got back out there. Yeah. I understand that sometimes we can miss these things, or there are things that we can miss when it comes to concussion spotting and everything. But I would rather just err on the side of caution. If you're not absolutely positive, 100% positive, if it involves a hit to the head, I would rather them just not come back out.
I feel like he may have tried to brute force his way out in terms of being the captain, and
players are stubborn, but still, like, it's on you as a medical staff to say no, you're not going back out there. Period. Especially. I mean, not that concussions to non-star players are less serious, and I don't mean to imply that. But when it's your captain and a player that is important, as important as Nico is to this team, if he has to miss half a game, I would rather that than you aggravate a concussion or a head injury or a neck injury or any kind of injury, that now instead of him missing half a game or maybe a game and a half or a couple of games, he's going to miss 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever games.
Yeah. That being said, obviously we are speculating that it's a head injury. They always just say upper body, right? They wouldn't say specifically head injury, but it's pretty clear from the hit that that's what it would be. Most likely.
It's frustrating as a fan. I really, in a lot of ways, do wish that the NHL was more transparent about injuries, but at the same time, I do kind of understand why they're vague about it. But yeah. Yeah, all they're saying right now is that it's an upper body injury. I'm assuming it's a concussion, but we don't know that for sure. So we know that he didn't make the road trip with the team, so it is probably unlikely that he plays on this road trip, but that doesn't mean that he can't join us later on. But I'm just going to assume that means he's not playing on this road trip. So, excuse me, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that's a big loss for us, and so far the Devils have been able to play through it. But yeah, wishing a speedy recovery for Nico, because we're going to need him down the stretch.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I just want him to be healthy.
For some reason, I thought that had happened in the first Minnesota game, but I get my games mixed up, so apologies for that.
No, that's okay. I forgot to mention it because I had his injury in the wrong spot on the sheet that I'm looking at here. So, but yeah, hopefully Nico can be back with the team soon, and we can continue on rolling.
That being said, we managed to get that win out of that Minnesota game without having Nico there. So it's good that the team can still function really well as a team, even in our captain's absence.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think that guys like Jack and Jesper Bratt have really stepped up. I mean, they've been playing fantastic all season, but as we saw out of the next game, which was tonight's game against Minnesota, in Minnesota, we're starting to see a little bit more fire out of Jack and a little bit more feisty physical play from Jack, which is interesting. They made a comment on commentary that Jack might not be winning the Lady Byng anymore. And if that means that he's a little bit nastier to play against, then that's a trade-off I'm willing to take.
Yeah. And then Bill said nasty in a good way, of course.
Yeah. So the Devils win tonight 5-3. This game was probably closer than it should have been. A little bit of a trend this season, but, whatever, a win is a win. Goal scorers in this game were Jesper Bratt, Tyler Toffoli, Erik Haula, and Jesper Bratt a second time. So all 3 games have had somebody that has scored 2 goals. The first game, Haula scores twice, and now Bratt has 4 goals in the last 2 games and is off to an incredible start, and we will get into that here in just a minute. It was a 4-point night for him tonight. 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points. This game, the first period was probably the best, at least the best first period the Devils have played all season.
Yeah, definitely.
It wasn't even close. The Devils got off to a 3-0 start in this game. 2 goals in the first, and then they scored again in the third, or in the second. I mean, their third in the second period. But then the second got a little hairy at times. They didn't play poorly, but Minnesota definitely stepped it up in the second period, and the defense started playing a little shaky again.
It just felt a little bit loosey-goosey compared to the first. The first, they seemed like they were making their passes, they knew what they were doing, and it was just, everyone was just, on the I was going to say on the ball, but it's a puck, obviously. But yeah, then the second it seemed like they were getting a little bit more loosey-goosey with it I thought it was towards the end, but you said it was closer at the start.
They finished the second period much stronger than they started the second. They think that to finish the second period, they had 6 of the final 7 shots in that period. So first 10 to 15 minutes of that period were, I wouldn't say they wasn't really dominated by Minnesota, but they definitely were the better team for that stretch. And during that period, despite a very, very strong end to the second period, Minnesota gets one early in the third to bring it to a 3-2 game. And I said to you, well, there's that most dangerous lead in hockey striking again. That 3-1, that dangerous 3-1 lead seems to bite a lot of teams in the ass, and I thought this was going to be another one of those games.
Yeah, I'm glad we managed to hold on to it and get that victory, but it would have been really nice to have another goal, to have it be a 4-1 lead, just to have that bit of security.
They can't ever make it easy. I said this on Twitter. I said the Devils just can't ever make this easy, can they? They got every game has got to be a freaking butt clenching victory. Fortunately, Minnesota did not end up tying it up. They had a pretty good opportunity after they had scored their second goal. I think there was still, was it 5 minutes left? And then they took a penalty. And so I said, okay, well, cool. The league's leading power play is going to go on. So I'm thinking to myself, even if we kill this penalty off, we still chew 2 minutes off the clock, and that only leaves them with like 3 minutes left. But then, like 10 seconds, I don't even think it was 10 seconds into the power play, Minnesota takes another penalty. This time it's a high stick on, was it Haula? I don't remember who it was on. But yeah, so the Devils go on the 5-on-3.
Tyler Toffoli.
Oh, Toffoli. Yeah, that's right. So the Devils go on a 5-on-3 to finish out the final minute and 40-something seconds or whatever it was. And we get a classic Dougie Clapper to give the Devils bring the Devils lead back to 2 and their 5th goal of the night. And the Devils would hold it there. So the final score, 5-3. Again, probably a little bit closer than it should have been, especially given that first period. But probably one of the better games that the Devils have played, all-around games the Devils have played this season, except for the goaltending. And we will get into that. And actually, do you want to comment on the goaltending?
Yeah, so V generally played well, but there was one goal that he let in that you initially said wasn't necessarily V's fault. It was kind of that one that kind of dribbled in under his leg. And I had initially said, oh, V, you got to have that. And you went, oh, no, that's not on him. And then you rewatched it later and went, you rewatched it again and went, oh, actually, he probably did need to have that.
See, I have a different perspective on this game. I actually don't think he played that well. I think he made the saves that he needed to make. I thought his first 10 minutes of the game were good. Looked really good. And then he started getting a little leaky at times. And again, he only gave up I should say he only gave up 3 goals because that's still not ideal. But yeah,
his save percentage wasn't good.
There were how can I best phrase this? Last season, after the first, I would say 15 games, when V was in net, I was pretty confident. I didn't necessarily think that he was that you could pencil him in to give you 45 saves in a game or 50 saves in a game, but he didn't need to because the Devils' defense was able to do a really good job at shot suppression and eliminating puck possession from the other team. So I think this is more or less probably the same as last year, but much worse defense. Or at least that's what I thought at first. I was like, oh, okay, well, we're getting the same VTech. It's just the defense is not playing up to the par that it did last year. But these last few games, he's been a little bit leakier, not as bad as Schmid, but I'm not super confident with him in net right now. I don't worry that we're going to get blown out per se, because I think the offense is too good for that. And I think the rest of the team is just too talented to get blown out even on a bad night. But yeah, I don't have that same sense of confidence that I did last year. When he was in that, and I get a little worried about prolonged defensive zone shifts with this team because of it.
My concern is, I mean, like you said, we've probably got roughly the same V as last year, or maybe not quite, obviously, considering he went on a fucking goalie spree at the beginning of last year.
I think he's worse than last year at this point.
Yeah. But the problem for me is that Schmid hasn't been playing well. We didn't get Schmid for any of these 3 games, but he hasn't necessarily been playing well. And my concern is that Schmid's kind of meant to be our 1B from what it seems like V's taking that 1A and Schmid's going to be the 1B. But Schmid isn't necessarily there to help back us up with goalies. So it's not very...
Yeah, and I mean, this is V's 3rd consecutive start. Now, I know that there's been a gap. We had a few days off. There was, we just had the 3 days off between the 2 Minnesota games. So I'm not worried about him being burnt out yet, but with V not playing that great, this is the problem with Schmid not looking good. Again, he's only played a handful of games, so it's still too early to judge. But I mean, the goaltending situation is definitely pretty shaky, and I think it's shakier than any of us are comfortable with. But at some point you got to put Schmid in there, or you got to put somebody else in there. If you can't play, or long gone are the days where starting goaltenders play
chicken
65 play 65 70 games. Those days are gone. And V last year alone, where he played, what was it, 40 or not 40, he played was it 50 games, right around the 50 game mark. That was the most he's played in his entire career in a single season. So I hope that they can get it together, but you got to imagine, if you're Tom Fitzgerald, you're putting some more feelers out there for goalies on the market. Yeah.
I think this is the first time this season that V's played multiple games in a row. I think up until now they've basically been going back and forth, and now V's had 3 in a row. Like you said, there was a gap between the 2 Wild games.
He had 2 in a row before this, but other than that, it's been basically back and forth.
But now we're going into a back-to-back. So we had the game today. We're going to have a game against the Blues tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, surely...
So surely Smid's going to be in net. So I guess we'll see what he's like tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he's got a good... He's going to need to bring it, so... on the flip side, and good news when it comes to goalies, Nico Dawes is getting set to return to Utica, so that's good news for both Utica and for our goaltending depth. So I don't think he's played a game yet, but I know he was practicing again, so that's a good sign. But yeah, goaltending is continuing to be a little bit of an issue. Wasn't horrific tonight by any stretch, but it wasn't particularly great either. So we're gonna have to keep a close eye on that going forward, because there's gonna be some really, really, really offensively talented teams that we're gonna be playing. That, you know,
we haven't played against anyone.
We haven't played against Toronto. We haven't played against Edmonton. We haven't played against the Rangers. We haven't played against Ottawa.
Carolina.
Carolina. Yeah, Carolina too, slightly less. I mean, their offense is still very good, but they do have a tendency for some reason, even though they're quite talented, to like go through these stretches where they're not scoring a lot of goals. But either way, yeah, still Carolina is
they seem to score on us somehow, though.
Yeah, well, those rivalry games are weird. They they always seem to go against the grain. So yeah. Either way, Devils end the week 3-0-0 since our last recording. So all in all,
2-0 when we score the first goal.
Yeah, because it's only happened twice this season. So, but it did happen 2 games in a row, both against Minnesota. So that's good. Or no, yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be the schedule is gonna start tightening up here, and we're gonna start playing. We're not gonna have any of these 3-day breaks going forward. We're not gonna have as many as it seems. It feels like the first 9 games of this season have taken 2 months to go by for some reason. I don't know if it's just I don't know whether it's at the beginning or not, but
it's probably a mix between the weird schedule and the fact that now we are doing a podcast, so we're like paying a lot more attention to each day as it goes by and going, oh, we're watching a game this day, like that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe it's just because we're paying a lot more attention so that we can talk about the games, you know?
Yeah. So that pretty much sums up the week. Since we're still kind of going back and forth on the topic of injuries, and we talked about Nico just a minute ago, I wanted to go on a little bit of a rant, if you don't mind. And it's not I'm not going to go crazy here, but so after the Nico injury against Buffalo, I start seeing once again a lot of calls. And when I say a lot of calls, I know that it is from a particular segment of Devils fans on social media, and I know that is not representative of the wider fan base. However, I really, really, really get sick of this notion that, oh, you need an enforcer on your team. We need to bring a guy in who's gonna make sure that these hits don't happen. And he's gonna, and if someone goes after one of our players, he's gonna fuck them up, and teams are gonna know not to fuck with the New Jersey Devils anymore because of that player. Those days are over. They've been over. Time and time again, teams have brought in these players who, outside of their physicality, bring absolutely nothing else to the game. They don't score. They can't contribute on the rush. They are not good with puck possession. Their skating is bad. Their defense is bad. But, they're in there to be the tough guy, and that they're going to make sure that nobody takes a run at Nico Hischier or Jack Hughes. No, all you're doing when you bring a player like that into a team, especially a high skill team like the Devils, this is not the New York Islanders, and that's not a diss on the Islanders, but the Islanders are built very differently than we are. The Islanders are a defense forward, strong checking team who is not going to score a lot, but you're probably not going to put up 4 or 5 goals on them very often. Unless you're the New Jersey Devils, in which we always seem to have crazy games against the Islanders. It's weird. But besides that, you bring a player like that into a system and onto a team like the Devils, who are speed, high skill, you're just hogging a roster spot to a player that could actually come onto this team and maybe contribute, maybe play, maybe put up a few points on the third line or the fourth line. Maybe Be a strong forechecker or a strong back checker and be good defensively, and maybe they're not putting up a ton of points, but they're not going to hurt you either, or they're gonna contribute positively to, your goals against and all of that. I don't know how many times this has to happen where teams bring these players on and it does nothing. Those players have never... If those types of players were going to stop hits like the one on Nico and other illegal checks to the head or really bad boarding calls or anything like that, that shit would have been over in the fucking 90s.
Yeah.
When there were still a ton of quote plugs or enforcers in the league. It didn't stop those hits then. It's not going to stop them now. What has brought those hits down is just that the game has changed. The game has turned into more of a high speed, high skill, high scoring game. If we were to bring in, and look, I know that there are players out there that play physical that also can score and actually play and actually contribute in other ways on the ice. Timo Meier is one of them. You look at a guy like Tom Wilson in Washington, who's got a very sketchy past at best, but he also can contribute on the score sheet. He's not just a guy out there that is headhunting and is taking players out of games. He also can score goals and put up assists. Why bring a player onto a team onto any team, but particularly this team, the way it's constructed, for that purpose? When we know that it's not going to stop anything. I could guarantee if you brought a player on, teams are still going to take runs at Jack and Nico and whoever else. And I'm not saying that all these players and all these teams are trying to necessarily end careers or give concussions or hurt players, but hockey's still a super physical game. And we know that we knew going into this season that teams were probably going to play us a lot harder. And they were going to play us a lot more physical on the puck. And we were probably going to have some of our star players take some pretty big hits because now we have a target on our back. And one of the ways that some teams have found success against us is to play that style of game. Take a look at Carolina and Florida, for example. Really physical, just smothering defensive hockey has shown to be successful against us. So that's going to happen regardless. And all you're going to do is slow the team down and waste cap space and a roster spot on a player that's going to do absolutely nothing. At that point, he's doing nothing. He's not bringing anything to the table. So he's going to be brought in to have 10 penalty minutes a night and finish the season with 250 penalty minutes. Okay, he's going to end the season with no goals and 1 assist. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And my thoughts on this as well are, straight after that hit to Nico, Palat got up and was fighting. He got, was it 10 minutes plus another 5 or something? I can't remember exactly what his penalties were, but he got up and he went up to bat for Nico.
You talking about Palat? Yeah. He got, I think it was a total of 17 minutes of penalty minutes. Yeah, I think because he got a 10-minute misconduct, a 2-minute, and I think a 5-minute as well. I'd have to go back and check on it, but I think it was 17 minutes total. Yeah.
It's not like we don't have people that are going to go up to bat for our players. And then you see that as well with Timo. I've seen him several times go up and try and protect some of our players. Like Jack, I think, happened tonight, where Jack was getting into a little bit of a scuffle with Ek. And Timo came in and was like, "Hey, don't you mess with Jack like that." You know, like, we have a couple of guys who will come in and be protective in that physical way, while also, like you said, still being able to produce in other ways. That's their main thing, is they produce in these other ways. They're not solely there to be that protective person, but they will get physical if need be. Also, you don't necessarily want someone who's going to be taking a whole bunch of those kinds of penalties, because they will end up being penalties. Even though you're being protective of your players, they'll end up getting penalties for it, for fighting, roughing, whichever call you want to make it. And when our penalty kill isn't that great and our defense isn't that great, you don't necessarily want to be taking those kinds of penalties. So I don't really know how that would help.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain situations where I think it's completely understandable to take the like Palat, the other day.
Totally understandable.
That was I was okay with him doing that, and I was okay with those penalty minutes because sometimes there's a line, right? That when that line is crossed, then it doesn't matter at that point, especially this early in the season. This isn't like it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, you know.
But if that were to happen every single game, that would kill us.
Yes, and that's what players that are brought in to, quote, be the tough guy and protect star players, that's all they're good for. And that may have been a philosophy that worked in the 80s and to some extent in the 90s, but that game has long past that. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I don't understand, like, I don't know if it's just like old school hockey fans that still just have that old school mindset of thinking. But it's pretty clear that that's not the game that we play anymore, or that the NHL plays anymore. And yeah, so anyway, that's my rant. I apologize. I just I saw some rumblings about it, and I was like, oh God, we're gonna do this again. We're gonna start, claiming that the team is too soft and that they need tougher guys and they need to bring in some guy. Like, no, I mean, isn't that kind of why Toronto brought in Bertuzzi? One of the, I mean, not that Bertuzzi can't also score, but like because he had a career year last year in Boston. But with that being said, he was like a tougher guy that was supposed to be like, he's like one of those, like I call them like little shits on the ice, like they're just a pain in the ass to play against, like Brad Marchand, for example. He's another one, but he's had a fucking terrible start to the season for Toronto. And when he's not scoring, it's like, okay, but I mean, what else you bring to the table then? Your physicality? Okay, that's fine, but I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, whenever someone gets injured, you're always going to get all kinds of opinions coming out. You see the ones saying that Nico should have known to avoid that hit, and it's kind of his fault that he got hit, and I don't necessarily think that was the case for the specific hit, but
I do agree that Nico has a tendency to make himself a little vulnerable at times. But I don't think it's fair to just blanket blame the victim in that situation all the time.
And I don't think that particular hit was one of those situations.
No, that's a hit that shouldn't happen regardless. It shouldn't matter. It was clearly not completely accidental in that I don't think he was trying to hurt Nico. But do I think that, he was probably a little reckless? Yes, absolutely. It was a reckless play that needs to be eliminated from the league. If we're going to take head injuries seriously and CTE and concussions seriously, then the penalties for those kind of hits, regardless of intention, need to be tougher. And they need to be like, we need to stop doing this, fining them the $5,000, the maximum, and giving them one game. Especially when a player is injured. Nico's going to miss at least four, probably 4 games. Quite frankly, I mean, depending on I'm not saying that it should be the case here, because I don't think that this situation was as egregious as warranting this. But I do think that in some instances, those particularly dirty hits, quite frankly, I think that the suspension should match the amount of time that the player missed from injury. If you explicitly headhunt and take a guy out, and let's say they miss 20 games because of a concussion, then your suspension should be 20 games. I don't think that'll ever happen. I don't think the NHLPA would ever go for that or allow that to happen, or to be put into the CBA. But yeah, and again, I'm not saying that Clifton's hit was deserving of that necessarily, but
I was mildly amused. Sorry, you go first.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I was mildly amused, though, that he had, 125 or 175 family members and friends there to watch him play, and he played 10 minutes of the game and then was out.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't... So I know that I have 175 family members, but I couldn't name 20 of them probably. Like, I've got so many cousins.
Let alone get them all to agree to come to the game.
Yeah,
at the same time.
I know that he's from Jersey, so his family lives presumably in Jersey,
locally,
or at least in the area. Yeah, but still, that's 175. God, it's like a whole section that you're taking up.
Yeah, so at the very least, it sounded like he was remorseful, if not for hurting Nico, but for disappointing his family that all came to see him and then couldn't.
He did
because
express
wasn't able to play.
regret for hurting Nico, and he did say that
Yeah.
that it was a reckless play, but he was anticipating that Nico was gonna do something else, and so I'll take his word for it. He doesn't have a history, so Nico's out. It sucks. We don't really know for
Hope
long.
a speedy recovery.
They're saying that they're evaluating him day by day, and Amanda Stein was very, very particular in making sure that was differentiated from day to day, because a lot of times you'll hear they're day to day with an upper body injury, and she was very she put in a lot of effort to make it very clear that the team is evaluating him day by day, and he's not day to day. So I don't really know what that means. It sounds worse to me than day to day.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So read that however you want to read it, but that's his current situation, is that there is no update on him other than he did not travel with the team and he is still being evaluated day by day, which is why I think it's a concussion, because that sounds like they're monitoring him for concussion symptoms. So
yeah, I agree. And knowing how concussions work from my personal experience, usually if it's a mild one, the symptoms will go away within 2 weeks. So that's probably the entire road trip.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Some concussions are worse than others in terms of the symptoms that they produce. Yeah, so
yeah.
The Devils are dealing with some injuries all around. I think we have a total of 5 players that are currently either on IR or listed as injured. Nosek and Miller are apparently not close to returning, Ruff said in an interview a few days ago, so we probably will not be seeing them for a while, which is a shame because those were depth signings, and depth is very important. So, I mean, Miller did not have a good preseason, but I still think that he would probably be an upgrade over Smith at this point. So, and Nosek, I mean, just a solid, fourth line guy. So hopefully we can get him back soon. But yeah, it does not sound like it's close to happening. So that's unfortunate.
Something that we mildly skipped over was the amount of points that Jack and Bratt have been getting these last few games and across the start of the season. Jack's got 20 points so far, 5 goals, 15 assists in 9 games played. Bratt is only 2 points behind him with 7 goals, 11 assists, making him have 18 points in these first 9 games, which means that both Jack and Bratt are now number 1 and number 2 in scoring in the entire league, which is really fucking exciting because, I mean, we knew that both of them can be great point scorers, but it's really exciting that we're 9 games in or 10 games in for some people, maybe 11, and we have the 2 top scorers in the league, realizing that people like McDavid was out with injury, so has missed a few games, so part of the reason he's not up there.
Yeah, we have our own Draisaitl McDavid on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Now, Brad is not a center, and I'm not saying that Brad's going to put up 120 points this year, but them being 1 and 2 in the NHL in scoring as of the recording of this episode is pretty fucking cool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, what else do you say? Jack is on a whole nother level. He had another 2-assist game tonight. That puts him in pretty elite company. I saw that he. Let me pull this back up here, because I believe that he is now 3rd all time in points in their first. Yes, he is. Okay, so with his 2 assists tonight and 20 points in the first 9 games of the season, Jack Hughes is now 3rd all-time since 1993-1994. I was going to say, I guess it wouldn't be all-time. He's 3rd since 1993 and 1994 in points, most points before the 10th game of a season. Jack is 3rd at 20 in 9 games. 2nd was Wayne Gretzky, unsurprisingly, with the Los Angeles Kings in 1993-1994. He had 22 points in 9 games. And then probably one of the more ridiculous stats you're ever going to hear. Mario Lemieux in Pittsburgh in 1995-1996 had 31 points in his first 9 games, which is just
Scrub. Get good, man.
Ridiculously stupid, unbelievable stat. So yeah, Jackson, pretty good company. And
amazing to see Jack's name up there.
And again, he's only 22 years old. He's going to probably get better.
Yeah, for at least another 3 years.
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah, I mean, the age curve for most forwards is right around, or I should say their peak, kind of usually is right around the 23 to 26 year range, or 23-year-old to 26-year-old range is kind of where most players peak in terms of performance. So, at 20 points in 9 games, dare I say this might not even be Jack's best. So we will see.
That makes me sick to think about, to be honest.
I think it is pretty safe to say that barring an injury, he is not only going to be the first Devil to score 100 points in a season, but he's going to blow past that 100-point marker. I would not be surprised. When we went into the season, and there were some people that had him like, oh, Jack's going to score 120 points this year. And I was like, okay. 120 points is like really hard. There are not very many players in this league that have ever played that have reached 120 points in a season. Like, that is an incredible achievement. And then there's McDavid, who just had 156 last season or something ridiculous. But I mean, in the post Lemieux and Gretzky days, 150-point seasons are unheard of. But now I'm like, okay, 120 points, that's very possible. I could see it. I mean, I could absolutely see him having a 50-goal, 65 assist season at this rate. So, really exciting
that's
stuff.
If he were to keep it up, and we hope he does, yeah.
Honestly, you know who I've been more impressed by? I shouldn't say more impressed, because Jack has been otherworldly, but I guess when I weirdly more impressed in that we knew that what he was capable of, but even this is probably more than we expected, and that's, of course, Jesper Bratt. He's up to 7 goals and 11 assists in 9 games. Like you mentioned before, second in the league in scoring after tonight. He has easily been the most noticeable Devil in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 games. The last 3 games specifically. I don't know what gear he is in, and I don't know how far off this is from Bratt's peak, but he's 25. He is right in the middle of his prime, and we are potentially looking at having 2 100-point scorers. And I said that we might. So do you remember back in our predictions episode? Do you remember what my 100-point prediction was, by chance?
No.
I predicted that the Devils would have 2 100-point scorers, and it would be Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. I think it's pretty safe to say that.
Nico.
I think it's pretty safe to say Nico's not hitting 100 this year, sadly. But we could still end up having 2 100-point scorers, and it could be Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. So
yeah, I remember my prediction for Jack was that he would be our first 50-goal scorer. And he's not quite on track for that in terms of goals, because he's gotten more assists than he has goals, but it's still possible.
He's on pace. Well, he's got 5 goals in 9 games, so he's on pace for like 40. He's on pace for like 45 or 46. Yeah, he's on pace for slightly more than he had last year. He had 43 last year. So he's on pace for close to 50, but not quite 50. But I mean, we know Jack. Jack can go on a tear and score 6 goals in 3 games or 2 games or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very possible that he is both our first 100-point producer and 50-goal scorer. And if he's gonna do it, it looks like this is gonna be the season to do it with how things have started. So it's weird to say that he, even with his 2 assists tonight, it felt like it was a quiet night for him. Even though he was like, he didn't play, he played a fantastic game. Yeah, he played a fantastic game. He was all over the place. He was very noticeable, but he's reached that level where just a quiet, or just a 2-assist night can be a quiet night for him. Yeah, sky's the limit.
I made mention that we're probably gonna see so many Hughes names like on the scoreboard, whether it's a goal assist or 2 assists by the Hughes brothers, because we've got so much Jack and Luke time on the ice together, particularly in our power play.
Yeah.
That'll be a nice thing to see.
It will be. All right, so we're about the hour mark. I just want to let's give a quick prospect update. Both in Utica and abroad. Right now, Chase Stillman, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points in 6 games played in Utica. Xavier Parent, 4 goals and 4 assists for 8 points in 6 games played in Utica. Graham Clark, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points in 6 games. Gritziuk, overseas, 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points in 16 games played. And Amin Aho, 9 goals and 5 assists for 14 points in 18 games played. He has slowed down. His goal scoring has slowed down slightly, but those are several Devils prospects that are off to a pretty decent start to the season. Particularly, Parent is having quite the unexpected start to the season in Utica. So be interesting to see where that goes. And I thought I saw it. You mentioned that maybe Amin Aho might be injured, but I couldn't find anything on that. I tried like looking up.
I don't know who it was that tweeted it, but I just saw some kind of I'm still going to call them tweets. I saw some tweet mentioning that he may be injured because he was spotted at a doctor's office with a potentially injured leg. I don't know the accuracy of that, and it was one tweet, and because I don't know who it was that tweeted it, I don't know how much authority they have to tweet that. But that may be something to keep an eye out for, but it's unconfirmed.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that and see if that goes anywhere. I hate to end the podcast on such a sad note. I originally was going to have this at the beginning, but it got shuffled to the end, so... obviously, we are in the wake of the very, very, very tragic death of Adam Johnson over in the UK. He was playing a hockey game. And I don't really want to... So I said when this first happened, I said to myself, I'm not going to watch the video because I don't want to see it. But I figured if we're going to talk about it, I probably should see what happened. So I watched the video. Don't watch it. I would recommend to anybody, just don't. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing to watch. He took a skate to the throat and unfortunately died from his injuries at the hospital later that evening. And it's just a really tragic, horrible situation. You feel bad for everybody in attendance that's had to witness it. You feel for his teammates. You feel for his family and his friends the most, of course. And you feel for the player on the other side involved. I can't imagine what he is feeling right now. I can't imagine the guilt and the trauma that comes with being involved in accidentally, of course, not intentionally, but being involved in another player's death on the ice, or as a result of things that happened on the ice. We could probably do a whole thing on this, but I think that it's probably time that the NHL takes a look, and leagues everywhere, not just the NHL, at every level and in every country, take a look at mandating net guards. To try and prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, I see so many people making comments about how the net guards aren't necessarily going to stop that from happening.
It's better than nothing, though, right?
They're not necessarily going to stop it from happening, but they can stop it from being as severe, and it's better than nothing, yeah. And any kind of protective equipment is better than nothing, especially if it's one that's not going to prohibit range of movement and things.
Seatbelts do not prevent all car-related deaths, but they certainly reduce them. Like you don't go through life saying, well, it's not going to completely prevent it, so why do it at all? Well, because it's still better than doing nothing. And I think it's a time. Go ahead.
Once upon a time, they played hockey without shoulder pads. Once upon a time, they played hockey without helmets. Once upon a time, they played hockey without mouth guards. Now, obviously, not everyone wears a mouth guard, but that there was always.
I mean, the visor.
Once upon a time situation.
It wasn't that long ago that the visor wasn't even required.
Yeah, there's always been a once upon a time situation where a piece of protective equipment wasn't required, and I'm sure every single time that started being mandated, people started saying, it's not necessary, it will be fine, this doesn't happen very often. But it's not necessarily about the frequency of it happening. You get used to it, everyone gets used to it, and then it becomes standard, and then it's like, oh, this is a good thing, we should be wearing helmets. And it becomes shocking when someone's helmet comes off on the ice and they have to skate off, and it's like, oh, they look weird without the helmet.
Well, and that's actually a newer rule too. They players used to be able to stay on the ice when their helmet came off, and then the NHL changed it and said, no, once your helmet comes off, once you are back on your feet and able, you must skate to the bench. It happened in the Devils game tonight. Siegs lost his helmet, and he had to go to the bench and either get off the ice and they make a change, or put his helmet back on.
I think they made a change.
So you're essentially forcing that team to go down a man for 20 seconds or however long it takes. But those are things you do because player safety is more important than the freaking game itself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. As I said before, I've worked with brain injuries and things, and I know there's a lot of people that say, it's just a concussion, it's fine. But it's not just a concussion. I've seen the very severe effects of multiple concussions or of severe head injuries. It is a big thing. So yeah, player safety is really important, and I have not watched the video of what happened to Adam Johnson, but
I wouldn't.
I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But it's a horrible thing that happened, and yeah, severe condolences to his family, to his fiance. Yeah.
This has happened before. Clint Malarchuk in the early 90s, the former Sabres goalie, got cut. I mean, that video you did see because you and I showed it to you.
Yeah.
I don't know why I showed it to you. If that feels like a sick thing to show somebody, but I think you were curious about what the injury was. So, but anyway, I think back to that. I was too young to remember that as it happened, but I've seen it and I'm aware of the situation. That was scary. I mean, if it weren't for the combat trained medic that came out on the ice, and I don't want to get graphic, but he did what he needed to do to stop the bleeding, if you catch my drift. And if it weren't for that, he probably would have died. And maybe we're having a different discussion. Maybe neck guards are mandated if he doesn't die, or if he dies, but it shouldn't take someone dying. That's what I don't. Yeah. I don't want it to get to the point where somebody has to die in an NHL rink in an NHL game before the league.
No game is worth someone's life.
No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, to get the NHLPA on board, maybe you grandfather existing players in, so it's optional for them, but all new players have to wear the neck guard. That's the same thing that they did with the visor. That's probably the only way you get the NHLPA to agree to it. There have been some players already that have started wearing them. Ryan Graves actually was wearing a neck guard in the Penguins game today, or at least he.
I think the AHL Bruins team immediately following that accident all started wearing neck guards as well.
Yeah, there was a bunch of teams that had ordered a bunch of new guards, and the various players that were seen in warm-ups and practice and in games today wearing them. So, I mean, good. I mean, I hope it becomes a league-wide mandate. Because I don't ever want to have to see that again. Just watching it from a distance was kind of traumatizing. I can't imagine what it was like for people that were there. It's just horrible, horrible tragedy. And I don't like to be a thoughts and prayers guy because it doesn't really bring much to the table. But obviously my thoughts and condolences are with his friends and family and any of those that were traumatized by it. Just sad. Just a really sad situation.
Yeah. I hope everyone stays safe out there.
Yes, and if you're playing hockey, wear a freaking neck guard, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I should actually get one myself.
All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for today's episode. The only thing we have left is the new Guess That Devil for this week. So hit me with it.
Yeah. All right. This Devil was drafted 113th overall by the Detroit Red Wings in 1985 and played 10.5 seasons with us before he was traded. He was quite physical and known for his slap shot, but didn't get many points his first couple of seasons.
Why do I feel like you've done this one before?
I have not.
Your clue is very similar to one you did recently.
I do word them all very similarly.
Yeah, this is giving me like deja vu vibes. Are you sure you haven't done this one?
Absolutely certain.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to think about this then, because for some reason I'm confusing it with the one, who was it that you did? Was it 3 weeks ago? I don't remember. Anyway, I think I know who this is, but I'm being a little clouded at the moment by both not feeling well and also for some reason feeling like we did this one already. But I think my brain's just playing tricks on me, so I'll have to think about this one.
Yeah, do you want me to text it to you so you have it written down somewhere so you can visualize it?
No, I'll have the recording. I can just go back and listen to it if I need it. I'm gonna edit this episode tomorrow anyway, so.
Fair enough. I will tweet this one, though. I will make sure that I sit down tonight and I...
Yes, they can't reply to our tweets if we don't tweet,
out.
Georgia.
I'm so sorry.
That's
this is why I'm not in charge of our socials.
That's okay. Not a big deal. All right, so the next game that the Devils will play is tomorrow. Well, actually, not by the time that this comes out, it will be today. And that is against the St. Louis Blues. And then we have one day off, and then we play the Blackhawks. And we will face Bedard for the first time on Sunday, November 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Mm-hmm. So that is the next 2 games coming up for the Devils. And we will obviously be... You're not going to miss any of those, right?
Tomorrow I won't really be able to watch because I play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, you're missing tomorrow's game.
But I will have the game in a little screen on my computer, but I won't be able to listen to it or pay a lot of attention other than the score. So you'll have to catch me up on that one.
That's fine. We'll make that work. No big deal. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps it up for this week. Once again, you can find us on Twitter/X at DDU_pod. We can be found on YouTube now as well at youtube.com/@devilsdownunderpodcast. All of our episodes will go up on YouTube automatically. So if that is your preferred method of listening, you can check us out there. And you can also check us out on pretty much any other social media platform that is out there by searching for Devils Down Under. That includes TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And that pretty much does it. You can also send us an email at devilsdownunderpodcast@gmail.com with answers to this week's Guess That Devil, questions, comments, concerns, or anything else. If you just want to send us a meme, go for it. And
we like our memes, clearly.
We do like our memes. Especially Devils memes. Especially when the Devils are playing well. I don't like sad Devils memes. All right, guys. That wraps us up for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys again next week.
Bye.